The table of contents in books, especially scholarly monographs, which is another word for a book written by one person, can often help you to see areas that you can subdivide for your specific aspect of the broader topic. Well, as you move from topic to research question, and you've looked at the history of your area, probably through commentaries, you want to identify controversies and open questions. Sometimes doctoral dissertations and PhD theses can be quite helpful in this area. And then ask yourself the question, what don't you know that you need to know? Okay, you say, well, I don't know what I don't know yet. Well, right, that's the point. But you're going to find in these controversies, there's going to be names you don't know. There's going to be maybe church councils they reference that you're not familiar with. There's going to be contemporary issues that you might not know about. There's going to be continental philosophers, for example. You're dealing with something in linguistics, and you might not know anything about Umberto Eco, for example. And you want to really think through what do I need to know about that person to do this topic. How much has been written about a topic? If you say, I'm going to write on the New Perspective on Paul, for example, where you're going to find there's been a massive amount of information written on the New Perspective on Paul, and so you might want to focus that more into the New Perspective on Paul and contemporary evangelical responses to, and you still probably even narrow it down more. Has something in your reading bothered you? You see this, and maybe it's something that you spot that people just say and there's no evidence for. They make a claim with no supporting evidence, and you want to deal with that. That could be a way to help you narrow down your focus. Is there anything unclear? Scholars that aren't writing in a clear manner could be the fact that they're hiding a lack of evidence or weakness in their argument. Different schools of thought. You're going to find in those fruitful areas of research. And then ask yourself, what can I add? Can I add anything to this topic and to this discussion? Now, to do that, this course will introduce you to ATLA and Atlas, which are resources for those working primarily in the religious studies. But that's one of the places you can go for finding information. And then end of books or articles and reviews of research, like I said, in the books that are written that come from revisions of thesis or dissertations are usually quite helpful in that area. So now that you've done that, you've started to narrow down from the broader field to an aspect of that broader field of interest to what you're going to research on. You're ready to formulate your question. You want to think of the how or why questions. What can be useful, but you're also often going to find that what does not produce a good research question. So how or why are the questions you want to focus on. One that you will find interesting and important. Again, if it's a topic that's no longer really relevant, it might be an okay general interest, but you're not going to find much to really excite you about, I would imagine. One research question per research project. Can't take on a whole bunch of other questions. If you come up with those, put those to the side for future study, but don't try to answer more than one research question per assignment. And then, again, put it into question form. Make it open-ended, not a yes or a no answer. Okay? Now, you've taken your research, you've put it into a question format, and now you want to motivate your research question. What we suggest for that is using a 3-point statement and to help you think about what you're doing. So what are you writing about? That's your topic. Okay? What do you want to know about it? That's your question. That's your research question. And then why you want to know it. That's when you're beginning to put together a rationale for your research. So the example that we give is I am studying a topic, what it is, because I want to find out, that's your research question, in order to understand, and that's your rationale. So let me give you an example. One would be I am studying Paul's view of election because I want to find out whether election is conditional or unconditional in order to understand whether Calvinism or Arminianism is more biblical on this point. See, all of a sudden you've moved from just, I just want to study election, or I want to see if election is conditional or unconditional, or I just want to study Calvinism or Arminianism. These are all large topics, but put together, you've narrowed this down specifically, and you've been able now to determine what I'm going to leave out or include. So moving from the question to the problem is quite important. The question, whose answer will matter to people besides you. See, in some ways, this is the significance of your study. You have now your syntactical skeleton written. I'm studying Paul's view of election because I want to find out whether election is conditional or unconditional in order to understand whether Calvinism or Arminianism is more biblical on this point. So what? That's what you want to ask yourself. So what? That's the significance of your study. Why should people care about your study? And if you can answer that question, it will keep you motivated to continue your work. And then think about the cost of not answering the question. And then on a positive side, think about the benefits of answering that question. And again, to motivate your research question, always ask, so what? So what? You don't want to just do this just to do it, even though in some academic settings that might be acceptable. We're seeking to make our research available for those in the church and those to fulfill and strengthen our ministries. So motivating your research question. Be sure your research question is feasible. Is it narrow enough to cover the space in which you have? Often students try to include everything in their research papers. You don't have to include everything. Have a narrowly focused research question, and then you'll know what to leave out. Do you have the necessary resources? If you're going to study a certain topic, make sure that the library that you work through is able to support the research that you're engaged in. And do you have enough time and financial resources? Sometimes you may choose to buy the books, and sometimes that may limit the research that you do. But do you have enough time? You have to be realistic in terms of the amount of time you have when the assignment's due, and the other classes that you're taking, not to mention that many of you work full-time jobs and have families, and you want to take all that into consideration when you think about motivating your research question. All right, that concludes our discussion. Again, there's a PowerPoint of this on Blackboard, and you may want to view that to review some of the material we discussed.